Hey everybody, Danny Goodwin, Editorial Director of Search Engine Land here, and I am being joined today by none other than Mike King. Mike, I feel like everybody everybody in the world probably knows you at this point in the SEO world, but if you want to give yourself a brief introduction of who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Mike King, CEO and founder of iPullRank, also Chief Relevance Engineer. I've been doing SEO for far too long. I also have a background in computer science, and we do a lot of enterprise SEO.
Awesome. And you just had your first SEO Week conference. I was just kind of curious how you thought that went and sort of what was the overall themes or takeaways that you think came out of that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because we kind of positioned it as the next chapter of search. And a lot of the things that we talked about were things that ultimately got announced yesterday at Google I/O. So, it was kind of indicative of like us just being slightly ahead of the curve with the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And, the feedback, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, but a lot of people said it was the best SEO conference they've ever been to. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. I'm really happy with how all our speakers showed up. And yeah, excited to do it again next year.
Awesome. And I feel like I should take this opportunity too before we dive into what I wanted to talk to you about today is kind of the state of SEO, but we're just about, I think, at the year anniversary of the leak from last year.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious if, looking back on it, uh, any thoughts on how that kind of helped the industry, or did it not help as much as you thought it did? What's kind of your look back? Like, what are you thinking about it a year later?
I think our industry is really stuck in this kind of like cognitive dissonance where like when they get new information, they just say, oh, we already knew that. And it's like a way for them to navigate the fear of, things changing, right?
Yep.
So I don't think enough things have changed, right? Like I think that all that information effectively gave us a lot of telemetry of how search works. And you would expect that at the very least, our software companies would be adopting more of that and surfacing more of that data for us so that we can be more effective in our jobs. But I do believe that there is like, a certain subset of the community that did absolutely do that. Like I'm seeing a lot of people that are pulling those metrics and using that to build like their own sort of correlation studies. There's a guy named Monik Bond from a company called Search Atlas that spoke at SEO Week, and he walked through like, here are all the things that we're doing. Here are the metrics that we built on the back of that. One of the things that we do a lot of is using that site focus score idea and using embeddings to represent the whole site, and then seeing like what is the distance for a given page from like the overarching site embedding. And then if anything is too far away, we just delete that content. And every time we've done it, we've seen, the whole site perform better.
Hmm.
So it's shocking to me that we don't have, like content auditing tools that automatically do this sort of stuff. And I got an email from the Screaming Frog team the other day, and they are starting to incorporate stuff like this. And it's interesting to see that like they are always the company that's like the most agile and updating their software in this way. And then reluctantly, the rest of the SEO space starts to copy what they do over time. But it's been really slow going on that like upper level of the
Mhm.
SEO space, but I think that there are more and more people that are like me that are incorporating this sort of stuff into their analyses.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, let's dive into a little bit of the state of SEO today. What do you think? And this may just sort of reiterate what you were just saying, but overall, as an industry, what do you think that a lot of us are doing right when it comes to adapting to all these AI changes, and what are we doing wrong as well?
I think we're doing the exact wrong thing as it relates to like adapting here because again, going back to the software companies, they're not fundamentally changing. They're just throwing ChatGPT on the top of their service. So, when I left Google I/O yesterday, I felt really it felt like the idea of like logging into one of these tools is just completely futile at this point because there's such a disconnect between what Google does and what SEO software does. Like at the very least, we're like 10 years behind, right? And that's not, again, being hyperbolic. It's this idea that Google moved beyond the lexical model of search 10 years ago. And all of our tools are still just counting the presence and distribution rates of words and saying like, hey, use these words more. Or we're looking at the link graph in a way that is, like a very small approximation of what Google is doing. But we learn from the leak, and also we learned a lot of things from the DOJ antitrust trial documents. We've learned a lot from the exploit, where we can see all the IR metrics and things like that. But at the very least, we've learned that where the pages that link to you sit in the different levels of the index impact how much authority that they pass. But every link index is still using the same metrics that they were using, for the last 15 years. So what we have to use to do our job doesn't make sense at this point. And then also a lot of, where Google is going as far as like AI mode, AI overviews, we don't have the ability to do what they're doing. And to some degree, it's just not really possible, right? Like they have this idea that they call query fan out, where effectively they're doing query expansion based on what the user put in. And they're doing it in a way where they're just handing the query off to Gemini 2.5 Pro, like a customized version of it. And it's then returning a bunch of queries and also different data points from like, the knowledge graph and so on and so forth. And then it's performing all these searches in the background. And then it's pulling chunks from those pages and then feeding it to Gemini to then generate, what the response is going to be in AI mode. So we have nothing that does anything like that. And in fact, like before I jumped on this call with you, I was literally like coding a version of what this could look like so I can have something we can point to get like a place to start. But there's numerous keyword research tools out there, and none of them have jumped on this idea. Even when you read other people's blog posts, and when I say other people, I mean not mine, about how to optimize for AI overviews, they're still just saying like, oh yeah, look up what ranks for that query, and then do your optimizations. And it's real hand wavy, like do your optimizations, right? The way that AI overviews works is also using this query fan out idea. And so where we got things wrong, I think, as an industry, is that we initially looked at these AI overview results and we saw like, oh, well, something that ranks like number 52 is being considered for this AI overview. That's not necessarily what was happening. What was happening was that document may have ranked number 3 for one of these expanded queries, but we just can't see that. And so what we're doing is just completely out of phase with what Google is doing. And the problem is that you still get some level of results. And so people are like happy just to continue to go with the best practices. But frankly, most of our industry does not know what it's doing right now.
Yeah, and obviously you just mentioned AI mode and AI overviews, which are not rankings, they are citations and kind of synthesized answers. So that's been one of my questions I've been having too, is how do SEOs continue to provide value heading forward in this new landscape, like beyond rankings, which is what, a lot of people have sort of based their whole business around, is like, I can get you ranked number 1 on Google. So where's our value heading forward? Do you see it?
Yeah, I think the channel has fundamentally changed. And as a result of that, the user behavior has fundamentally changed. And so what I'm realizing is that search has always been a branding channel. We've never positioned it that way because it's always been considered like, oh, performance, we drive traffic, we drive clicks. But with more of these surfaces that are popping up, like whether it's featured snippets or AI overviews or AI mode, there's a lot of instances where the user doesn't have to click to take an action, right? Like if you look up a query that's like, best earbuds for working out, and you see in the AI overview, like, oh, Apple AirPods, cool. You don't have to click through for that. You can go to the store and buy the Apple AirPods. but we've never taken credit for that because we look at channels like display that have like 0 click or 0.0001% click-through rate. And we're like, that's not real. That doesn't do anything. But the reality is that branding channels do a lot. Running YouTube ads or running a Super Bowl ad, that creates search volume. So what's happening here is that, you might type in a non-branded query and then you see some branded information and you take action, or you see some branded information and that informs the subsequent query that you're going to run and then take action. So I think what we need to be doing is a more strategic thing where we're leaning more into the branding aspect of the channel and then showcasing for clients like, hey, this is a way that we can help you change the mind share, not just how do we drive clicks for you, because the reality is that people are getting their information directly from the SERP. And again, that is a valuable thing. But what we're ultimately seeing is that when they do click, it is a more qualified user because they're more educated. So we have to explain to clients that, the relationship between clicks, impressions, and conversions has changed a bit. And, in a lot of cases, we see that conversions may be going up even though traffic is going down. But nevertheless, all of this is a strategic discussion that we need to be having. And the problem is that SEO is historically not good at being strategic.
Yes. So obviously you mentioned you've been around for far too long in the industry, like a lot of us at this point. Is there anything that's exciting you at this point about SEO and in the future?
Yeah, it's all very exciting because we're in a space where we're changing things. So we've got to invent things. We got to research things. We got to find out, what actually works now. So it's a lot of fun to play around with these things. And also just the technology is marvelous. You know what I mean? There's like the new aspects that they're adding to Google search are mind-blowing, right? Like the fact that we're talking about personal context, we're talking about reasoning, we're talking about deep search, we're talking about all these new things that allow us to get directly to these answers. We're talking about the multi-modality aspect of it, where you can bring in videos and very much understand it, or the information can only be in Japanese, but they're going to translate it into English and give it to me. All of this is amazing. And so figuring out where we fit in this, again, for so many people is a fearful endeavor. But to me, it's exciting because it's we have the opportunity to define something new. And again, this is where my problem comes with the SEO community, is that so many people are just saying oh, it's just SEO, it's just SEO. And, where they're correct is that, yes, the fundamentals still need to be here. You still need to have a technically, solid website that's accessible. You've got to have the content. You've got to, make sure your 301 redirects are in place, all that sort of stuff. But the big difference is that what they do with our inputs is dramatically different. And so we don't have the control that we did before. You put something into Google before, it comes out the same on the other side. Now it is enhanced, it is chopped and screwed, and then it's served up to the user in a way that's unrecognizable. And you don't know if it's going to be your site or someone else's site that shows up there when you have the same information. So I think that is a fundamental difference on how we need to be operating, but we don't have enough visibility into what we need to be doing to operate that way. And the way we get that isn't through optimization, it's through engineering.
All right, awesome. And on the other end, as you alluded to, there are some fearful people at this moment of all the changes that are going on, especially with I/O. Is there anything right now in the SEO world that is sort of keeping you up at night? Does anything have you worried about the impact of all these AI changes, AI overviews, zero click, all of this stuff that's happening right now? Is there anything that has you concerned?
My only concern is the lack of information from Google about the search behavior changes. I think, and I said this to, some engineers and Danny Sullivan and so on, that what would have been super valuable would have been them to add something to like the how Google works section of the site that talks about like, hey, AI overviews is shifting user behavior. Um, you should expect that there will be less clicks because without that, what we've had to do as a community is tell our clients that and prove it, improve it, improve it. And after, 25 years of being measured on traffic, which we can argue was right or wrong, we're now telling them that they should expect less traffic. So we don't have credibility to establish that. We needed Google support on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's especially disheartening because, our relationship with Google is symbiotic, right? Like Google's search quality would not be anywhere near as good if it wasn't for us. They wanted structured data. Cool. So we pushed schema. They wanted sites to go secure. So we pushed that. They wanted core web vitals so they can make the web faster and save money in crawling and so on. We gave them that. They can't give us something as small as like, hey, things are changing. Here's a document that you can give to your clients so they can have their expectations managed. That's preposterous. And I don't think that the relationship that we have with Google is healthy, right? Like if you look at Google I/O is a good example, right? Like they are supporting the development community because, and it's not an altruistic thing. It's obviously so that people use their products and pay for Google Cloud and so on. But there's also this aspect that they give a lot to the open source community because they're going to get a lot back from the open source community. And so they have this huge event that costs, probably 10, $20 million where they're really like taking care of these people. And then for us, they put us in these side rooms and they give us some soda and some chips. And they say, cool, here's what it is. Take it or leave it. That's not a good way to manage a relationship with the people that you need. So that's my big thing. It's really just like we deserved more support in this moment.
Well said. All right, so we've said a lot. So just to kind of sum up, based on what you're seeing right now, do you think SEO is heading toward a period of growth, decline, or reinvention over the next, you pick a time frame, next year, couple of years, 5 years?
It needs to be reinvention. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to split to some degree. And I think I'm driving the split, right? Because what I'm saying is that we need to reinvent ourselves, and that reinvention I'm calling is relevance engineering. And because like the SEO frame is so limiting, SEO has like a awful reputation. There's like a recent study about a year ago where they proved through a longitudinal study that, SEO has made Google worse. There's no standards in SEO, and you talk to 10 SEOs and ask them what they do, you're going to get 10 different answers of like how to do an audit, how to do anything, right? And so I think we need to, frankly, grow up and come to terms with this environment that we're in. And we need to be building like open source software to support this because, the SEO software industrial complex is not giving us what we need to do the job as it is today or how it's going to be, in a couple months from now. So I think that there are going to be people that cling to what SEO has been for the last 25 years and continue to lean on best practices and continue to only make changes when they read a blog post or when Google tells them to do something different. But I think that, this new thing needs to define what it is for itself. Like SEO has largely been defined by Google, and it's been such a disservice because they tell us not to do certain things, so we don't. But the real opportunities often lie in the things they tell us not to do. As an example, like, and I don't mean just them, I also mean like within our own community. As an example, our own community has continued to say that, page titles should only be 60, 70 characters. That's not true. It's 100% not true. Like they weigh everything that is in that page title. And in some cases, they will use parts of it to rewrite the page title based on the user's query. So, but despite that being like an actual fact that you can experiment and see, and in fact, Google spokespeople have said, like, where did that even come from? We never said 60, 70 characters. So we have all these things that don't make sense, but have this like, perpetual inertia because so many people said they were true. And that stuff has no place in this environment that is so volatile and, just needs like new information to capitalize on where we're going. So you're going to have this mindset that continues to persist because it just will. But then you're going to have this other set of people that are going to be like, no, let's test everything. Let's try and build things that replicate what Google is doing. Let's like pay attention to what's happening in all the research that Google is sharing. And let's actually make this a thing that is like more scientific.
Awesome. All right. And speaking, I heard you mention the term relevance engineering. I know that's going to be part of your talk at SMX Advanced, which is coming up June 11th to 13th in Boston. We are back live in person, which is awesome. I think you've spoken at a few advanced in your day in person. Yes, absolutely. So it's great to have you back for that. And yeah, if you just want to give people who are thinking about going, like, why should they come to your session?
Because I'm the greatest SEO speaker there is. Duh. Just kidding. No, I'm gonna walk through like the tenets of everything that I'm talking about. I'm gonna make the case like very clearly, like here's where we're at, here's what's going on, here's what the changes that we're not ready for, and here's what we need to do to get ready and stay viable in this space. So we're gonna be thinking strategically about it, but I'm also gonna give you like tactics and tools and things to really learn so that you can level up to maintain and grow and thrive through this next era of search.
Awesome. I can't wait for that. It's going to be one of the sessions I'll be moderating, so I'm looking very forward to that. So, Mike, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us and sharing your insights. It's always awesome to hear from you. And I sincerely hope a lot of people start really listening to you and following the direction, because I think you have you're right spot on. So,
thank you, Dan.
Yes. So thanks again for joining us. Thanks everybody for watching.